So I just feel like it's time to get started. It's top of the hour. Here we are, January 13th, 2021. And it's Wednesday. It's Wednesday. It's what you do day in, day out for decades now, Ron. And you're here for each and every one of us to educate, to pour into us, to share with us your passion. And so I'm really, I'm feeling a little bit giddy tonight because I feel every time you have a call here, I learn something new, and I just know that there's something in this enzymes conversation we're going to have tonight that I just haven't heard before. And we've known each other over a decade, and I'm still continuously learning and being exposed to new information. So I want to welcome you and just tell you thank you for all that you do and all that you bring to each and every one of us week in and week out. And I'm really excited that you've chosen to go down this path to start the year and really, educate us on what Enriching Gifts is, who Enriching Gifts is, and what it has to offer. So, welcome to the call, brother. I'm going to turn it over to you, and
All
I'm
right.
excited.
All right. Well, thank you, Dover, and welcome to everyone. And tonight we're going to talk. Last week we talked all about the company, the history, how I got involved in enzymes, those kind of things. This week I want to talk about the number one most significant, impactful product I believe, and my belief system comes from traveling all over the world to see what this thing's been able to produce as far as results for the human race all over the entire planet Earth. And it's enzymes. And I want to just before I get into the enzymes, I want to go take us back to last week's conference call, because if you remember right, there was a gal in there that had asked about or made a statement something like, "Well, my doctor told me not to take enzymes because it shuts down your body's own enzyme production." You guys remember that? And I'm going to tell you one thing that was forgotten in that whole conversation and is always forgotten in the doggone conversation with any medical professional or naturopathic physician or even alternative therapy people. You cannot change genetics once you're born. That's your program, just like your computer. You're programmed for the rest of your life. You can't go beyond what you're programmed to achieve, yet you can't get anything less than what you're programmed to achieve. You can die prematurely. That's an absolute fact. Everybody knows that. Today, we're still programmed to be 110, 100, 105, 110 years old. Some say even as much as 120 genetically. But our average age of death here in America is 70 some years old. So, how is that possible? Well, let me just back up because, again, I want to go back to that question that's really bothered me a lot this whole week. And it came up this morning. It came up yesterday from different people across the US calling in about health issues. Well, they were advised not to take digestive enzymes because it'll somehow stop, your body will stop producing its own. The human body is genetically designed to reproduce cellularly every day you're living and breathing. That's the way you're programmed. So, how are you going to all of a sudden get your body to stop producing enzymes? It's not genetically programmed that way. Will it produce less? Yes, it does, a lot less. And that's what digestive enzymes were designed to do for the human body. Stop overproducing, stop putting that strain on the pancreas and over enlarging the organ. Because by the time you're 38, 42, you're under such a struggle trying to produce enzymes and get a decent job of digestion done of your food source, it's impossible to do. So then you start robbing from Peter to pay Paul. Well, in this case, Peter is all of your metabolic organs, your heart, your lungs, your brains, your liver, your metabolic organs. And that's what the enzymes are coming from when your body can no longer produce enough. Because here's a fundamental fact as well. And then I still want to get back to this. Why would we want the body to produce less enzymes? And it's very, very fundamentally easy to answer. But when you sit there and you think about the human body, our body has never been genetically designed to do 100% of the breakdown and digestion of your daily food consumption. It's never ever been designed that way. It's still not genetically designed that way today. Edward Howell, Dr. Chichoki, Gunther Enderlein, and I can go into a whole bunch of other people, scientists, very reputable, back in the 60s, the 50s, the 40s. This is how far this goes back. That's why I get a little insane and nuts that I have to keep going over the same doggone conversation defending myself because everybody is so ignorant about the human body. And I'm talking about the medical community. I'm not talking about anybody here. I'm just talking about this is so far beyond understanding now. We should not have people sitting there having to sit there and question me because their doctor says, oh, well, you don't want to do that. Your body will stop producing its own enzymes. So why does your body genetically need other enzymes? Because that's the way we're genetically designed. And why is the raw food diet the best diet a person can live from? Why is all the health professionals and everybody say you need your raw greens, your raw vegetables, your raw fruits? Eat it raw. Don't cook it and process it. Because by doing that, you're literally destroying all the enzymes in that food source. The actual enzymes in a food source that grew that food source from a seed into a plant and a food, those enzymes within that food source can actually help to digest the food source by as much as 60 to 70%. 60 to 70% of the digestive process is meant to be done by the foods we consume. That's the way your body is genetically programmed. We were never designed to do more than 20 to 30% of the digestive process. So now that we're cooking and Pizza Hut and Little Caesars and McDonald's everywhere, and everything is processed and enzyme dead. Don't believe me? Get a McDonald's cheeseburger and leave it sit on the counter. The bread won't even mold. It's crazy. And they'll sit there and you can go back to that burger and they'll still be there a year from now. So everything is so cooked and processed, and now we're putting back 100% of the digestive burden on the human body. We're not genetically designed to do that. We've always, always, always been designed to have another source of enzymes do the majority of digestion of the human food diet. So let's take and get into that a little bit further. So now we've got this plant enzymes. They're derived from plant sources, and they're extremely high activity. So they're going to do well most, if not all, of the digestion of food sources that you would consume. Good example, all of it would be the oatmeal test, for example. McDonald's cheeseburger, burger, bun, and fries with 3 enzymes over the course of about 26, 22 minutes. That's chocolate milk. So we can do by far the majority of the digestive process and be in alignment with the way our body is genetically designed with this product, the plant enzymes under Enriching Gifts label. And so one of the benefits of actually reducing the amount of enzymes that your body has to produce, because again, I'm going to go back, we're just like a computer, we're programmed. And you cannot do anything without the programming parameters that you have inside that hard drive. We'll call it the human body, our internal body parts. You can't do anything other than what you're genetically programmed to do. If you're going to try to get red hair and you're genetically designed to have black hair, you can never, ever, 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 ever get red hair unless you dye it. It'll never happen naturally on its own. So my whole process and my team and everybody was all about. I got people calling in and trying to place and stuff. I don't know why they do that Wednesday nights. But anyways, so the reason you want your body to not have to overproduce is because you enlarge your organ. And you know, one of the most common causes of diabetes is an over-enlarged pancreas, because the pancreas not only produces the protease enzymes for the digestive process, it also is the main organ that produces all of your insulin, which regulates blood glucose. So therefore, another reason why you would want to take a digestive enzyme on a daily basis for the rest of your life once you reach the age of 30. Because otherwise, there's other areas of the body that are going to tremendously suffer because of this whole digestive component. And let me say one more thing too. Digestion consumes more calories than the entire metabolic functioning of the whole body put together. That's how stressful digestion is on the human body. That's how much significance and importance the body puts on the digestive process. It's the number one metabolic functioning role of the whole body functionality process. So one of the things that you're going to benefit by starting to take enzymes is you're going to take the pressure and all of the inflammation away from the human pancreas. And the human pancreas on an average person by the time they're 35 is almost double the size of any other animal on the planet Earth of similar size and weight. Our pancreases are enlarged. They're trying to produce more enzymes, would create more tissue, a larger volume of an organ. It doesn't work. You can double the size of a pancreas, even a little bit more than double, and you can never increase more than 38% output of protease enzymes. That's all been proven scientifically, researched, so on and so forth. So that's just one of the benefits, is you're able to actually now keep regulating that insulin that helps to regulate your blood glucose. And like I said, the number one reason why a lot of people become type 2 diabetics is because their pancreatic organ is so over enlarged trying to produce enzymes, they can no longer maintain beta insulin receptor cells. And then you get into the second thing. Did you know that there was a study done many, many decades ago at University Austin, El Paso, and another one down in Brazil? And they actually showed where by taking digestive enzymes, you could actually extend your lifespan by as much as 28 years. 28 years. Think about that. Think about what age your parents died at. And now add on another 25 to 28 years onto that. You've got a great, wonderful life ahead of you, a long life. You don't have to be this genetic gift anymore. Well, my parents lived to be 102. My grandparents lived in their 100s. So yeah, you're probably going to live to be 100. I wasn't that lucky. I'll be lucky to hit 65 if I go by my genetics, and I'm already 65. So that for me, that's one of the biggest reasons why I got into this. And I've been taking enzymes for over 30 years. And, outside of my burned feet, my nerve damage, I'm a real healthy human being. So I'm a walking, talking testament of what enzymes can do for people. I'm 65. Most people still, I mean, if I shaved off this little bit of gray on the beard, nobody'd believe I was 65 years old. They just wouldn't believe it. And so that's the one big benefit. And I just wanted to clear up that misconception, that terrible myth that just seems to hang around and plague the medical community. Ooh, don't take enzymes, your body will stop producing its own. No, your body reduces way down significantly the amount of enzymes that your body produces. But will it stop? It can't. It's not genetically programmed to do that. Your body will always have the ability to produce enzymes, even in some kind of a crisis where you're not taking outside source enzymes, where you're not eating a raw and enzyme-rich organic diet anymore. Your body will go right back to over-enlarging the organ, trying to create more enzyme output. That's never, ever going to change. Your body, you cannot change genetics. And that's the last thing I'm going to say about that. You cannot change genetics once you're born. You can mutate to some degree, but you can't change them. And you can't go beyond the programming that was put into you at birth through your DNA and your genetics. That programming will be for the rest of your life. That's why when you go in and you get these genome tests and stuff, why they're so beneficial, because they can see how you're programmed. They can see what you're deficient in. They can see your strengths, your weaknesses, foods that will trigger allergies, inflammation, so on and so forth. And how do they come up with all that information? Through genetics. Unchangeable genetics. We know that's not going to change over the course of your life. And I still don't believe that cancer is a genetic factor, that just because your parents have it, is that you're going to get it. There's a good likelihood, because your genetics, the way you consume your food, the way you process your food, and at certain points and times of your life, you're going to be severely nutritionally deficient because of that deterioration of enzyme production every decade we all live. And by the way, here's another little tidbit of part of the puzzle to this whole thing. Every 10 years, a human being lives their life from birth to death. Your body starts to decline in its production of enzymes by age 13 to 15. And by the time the average person is 38 to 42 years old, your body produces less than 50% of the digestive enzymes for your meal digestion as it did at age 15. 50% or greater less. That's why you don't die from a disease. You literally die from a compromised immune system. You die because of nutritional deficiencies at a metabolic cellular organ level. Can't digest it, you can't get nutrients to the cell. It's pretty plain and simple. Most people know that. So these are just the fundamental things I want everybody to really think about. And if you've got really horrific disease issues and illnesses and this and that, like I said earlier, there is nothing on the planet Earth that I've found to be more effective as your first go-to product. Does it make any sense to eat vitamins and all these other supplements and all this other stuff that contains all this nutrition, organic or not, enzyme cooked or not? If your body can't produce the enzymes to digest it, then I say, why in the heck is anybody putting it inside our body? It doesn't make sense. You just ingested toxicity. I don't care how organic it is, how expensive, what the choice of the food source was. You just ingested toxicity. Anytime you ingest something in the body that cannot be broken down through the digestive process and eliminated, you just ingested toxicity, regardless of what it is, the food source or anything else. So that's kind of what I wanted to get into. And so I got there. Let's move on from that. And let's talk about enzymes in general, because there's several different types of enzymes. You have what they call metabolic enzymes, and those are the enzymes within all our organs and tissues of the human body. That's what makes all our organs and tissues run cellularly every day. And then you have digestive enzymes, which are a whole different class of enzymes, very specifically produced in a couple of organs and tissues that do the job of digestion for the human body and from your human diet. A lot of people still to this day think hydrochloric acid somehow digests food. It doesn't. If it would digest protein and tissue like turkey, beef, chicken, and pork, then why doesn't it digest the human stomach to pieces? You know, people talk about a calcium buffer. Well, that's great, but my food's hanging in my esophagus all the way down, and it goes to a whole bunch of different parts of the body after that. So hydrochloric acid cannot digest food. It doesn't. What it does do, it actually creates an acid pH factor, because all the enzymes that are produced by your body for digestion of your meal, they're all acid pH range enzymes. They have to be in an acidic pH in order to activate and become effective at digesting and breaking down your food source. So that's another really important part to all of this. So, and then the third type of enzymes, you know, we call them plant enzymes or food enzymes. Those are the enzymes that are within the foods that we consume in all of nature. Trees have it, grass has it, any living source on the planet Earth has it. And most of nature we would consider plant-based. So those are your three basic categories of enzymes. And like I said, metabolic enzymes, they're part of the genetic program. You can't get to produce them more or less. The plant enzymes, we can actually take those in and replace what society and commercial growing is processing out of our food source in the way of living enzymes in a finished product. So you can actually replace that. And that's what this is all about. It's been always about that for me. So let's talk a little bit about the different types of products, because you have pancreatin, which comes from pig intestine. You have ox bile, which comes from the bile from an ox, closely related to the liver. And then you have fungal enzymes, you have plant-based enzymes, you have, there's one that I'm missing here. What's the other one? I'll think of it in a minute as we go through this stuff. But anyways, so you've got many different sources of enzymes that you can consume in a capsule or liquid form. But the problem with pancreatic enzymes is they're limited to an acid pH only. They're not going to do anything like the wobenzime. There's the one I was thinking of. Wobenzime is a pancreatic enzyme, and it's made in Germany. It's been around since the 60s. Everybody knows it has a real high possibility of diminishing or eliminating cancer from your life. That's what it's known for, is the cancer enzyme. And it's been known for that for well over 50 years. And so anyway, so as I'm sitting here talking about these various types of enzymes, What's the best enzyme formula for the human body? Well, by the way, I had a team of 12 people that helped me formulate this stuff. It wasn't all done by myself. Probably 85% of it was done in research by myself, but I had other people involved with it, medical professionals, heads of ministry, health of countries, really, really highly educated, degreed people. So when you look at what's best for the human body, well, one, I believe that we always had to have an enzyme that was capable of surviving the acid pH of the stomach. Well, there's a whole lot of enzymes that can do that because the acid doesn't digest protein. And all enzymes are protein-based molecule substances or catalyst factors. And so you look at the different sources, pancreatic enzymes, they work. They work as long as you have acid. What happens if you're under acid? Your body has a struggle problem producing acid. Well, even a pancreatic enzyme isn't going to work because it needs an acid pH. So if you're drinking those apple cider vinegar and it makes the digestive process feel better, then that tells you you're digestive enzyme deficient. Because really the only reason your body produces acid is to activate enzymes that are involved in digestion. So if you added in the acid, the apple cider vinegar, the acid, you added that in and it went away, then that means you're digestive enzyme deficient. If you added in more acid and it actually got worse, then you're mineral deficient. So that's how you can tell whether you're under acid or over acid. And then you go a little bit beyond that. Now let's talk about the formula. These are all plant-based and they have both acid-based and alkaline-based activated enzymes in them. I'm not going to get into the specific strains. I just get into the total activity units and stuff. And before I even go into that, don't ever buy a product that just says milligrams. That is the worthless, most junk piece of junk. I've never ran into not one out of the hundreds that I've tried with the oatmeal test. And there's a reason why they list milligrams and not activity units, because it's garbage. And if they showed the consumer what they were asking for their product, you're not going to pay even 10 cents for garbage. And they just don't work, plain and simple. And pancreatic enzymes are limited to an acid pH. So if you've got cholesterol problems, you've got all kinds of protein accumulating in your vessels and in your arteries and in your organs, well, pancreatic enzymes aren't going to do anything beyond the acid stomach. So that's not going to help you much in those kind of conditions. So you really want to get a full spectrum enzyme that has both alkaline and activated proteases, amylases, and lipases in particular. Cellulase is a enzyme breaks down fiber. We don't need fiber. Fiber doesn't go beyond the intestinal tract. So we don't need those in the bloodstream. So these are the factors that we looked at when we overall formulated the Enriching Gifts Plant Enzyme product. So let me just start by saying, before we do that, let me put on my glasses here. A little bit dark with the fire in here, but I can see now. So the very first ingredient, and it is by far the highest ingredient. Always look at your facts panel and remember, according to FDA regulatory laws and regulations, you have to list your ingredients according to the amount of milligrams in the overall formula capsule. So the first one we have is protease. I will tell you there's 6 different strains of protease enzymes in our product. 3 that are acid and 3 that are alkaline. So we actually have enzymes that can enter into the bloodstream fully intact, fully active and functional. They survive the acid stomach, another big myth by some of the ignorant medical community out there. Nope, the oral enzymes are all destroyed by acid in the acid stomach. Nothing can get it. That's not true. We actually did a study over in South Africa when we were working over there on the AIDS epidemic really early on in 1995, 96. And we got to actually show that where we dyed the enzymes before they were consumed. And you could actually see those in the bloodstream. Once you pulled out the blood, you could actually see the dyed enzymes in the blood sample. Then we extracted those, tried to isolate them as much as possible. Now we put them into a food source like the oatmeal. Yep, it still digested the oatmeal. Blood won't digest oatmeal. The enzymes did. So they survive the acid stomach. They absolutely get absorbed. That was the other thing. They're macromolecules, so they're long thought not to get absorbed. Well, sterols are even bigger than the enzymes themselves, and they're absorbed fine. But the one thing that most people have never heard the term transformational protein molecule. Remember that. Transformational protein molecule. Because the enzymes can literally take from around and start folding and collapsing in and upon themselves to where they can just become so small they can get out to the extremities of a single capillary. Red blood cells can't even do that, but enzymes can. So that's how all of this stuff works. And I've never heard anybody use transformational protein molecule, that term, ever. Even today, I've never heard anybody use it. And that, if you understand chemistry, explains everything anybody needs to know about how enzymes are able to do and get to where they're able to get to. Okay, and all enzymes have that in common. It's not just proteases or amylases. So then the proteases that we have, like I say, there's 3 alkaline, there's 3 acid. We have enzymes that can go in and break down LDL cholesterol that's oxidized. Because what is that? That's a fat. Lipase enzymes, yep, that'll digest fats. Then you get into your scar tissue, thrombin, fibrin, fibrinogen, all these different proteins that your body produces as important functioning as well as healing and prevention factors. Like your body's going to rush a whole bunch of fibrinogen anytime you have an injury. It's just full of platelets, and it's just going to, well, that protein goes along with it to help isolate, seal if there's a hole or a puncture or a knife wound or anything like that. It helps the clot. So there's all these different factors that we looked at before we even started formulating these things. And we identified 43 different things that would inhibit the human body from acquiring and achieving optimal living genetics throughout a person's entire lifespan. That's what we and 10 other scientists actually got together and did. There's 12 total. And so what happens is at the end of 2 weeks, we had completely cleared that whiteboard of those 43 items. We thought we had found a way to compensate for every single thing that was on that whiteboard that would inhibit or alter the human body's ability to achieve full genetic potential of a lifespan. And like I said, you can't change genetics, so if your lifespan is programmed to where it can't go beyond cellular reproduction in your 83rd year, you're not going to be able to extend that either, no matter what you do. It's just not a possibility, at least not yet. So then you come down to the full spectrum. So we need a protease to break down proteins. Proteins are the hardest thing for the human body to digest. Out of all the foods you consume, protein is the #1 calorie burning furnace. So when you sit there and you start thinking about muscle tissue mass and things like that, you really got to start to looking at the whole calorie burning process, because muscle tissue mass is the human body's metabolism, the rate at which you burn calories to create energy for your body. That's the definition of metabolism. And the #1 thing for creating a fast metabolism, the burning of calories, is muscle tissue mass. And give you an idea of what that means, you take a pound of fat, 1 pound, we're comparing apples to apples, a pound of fat to a pound of muscle tissue, or fat cells. So you take a pound of fat cells, how many calories are required to be burned up and metabolized daily to maintain that functionality of that pound of fat cell? You're gonna just freak out. Only takes 3 to 7 calories per pound per day. So literally you could have 100 pounds of fat and it wouldn't even require 300 to 700 calories a day to be burned to maintain 100 pounds of fat on a person. That's why fat is so hard to get rid of. It requires nothing to have it hang around. So then you look at muscle tissue. And this is why I'm a big advocate. You don't have to go in the gym and be a bodybuilder. You don't have to go out and run miles. In fact, you'll burn the same amount of calories if you walk a mile as if you sprinted a mile. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it's all about time. And as long as you've got the muscle tissue to burn up those calories, doesn't matter how long or how active, this and that. And another thing about weight maintaining and stuff, muscle tissue actually burns 24 hours a day. That actually slows down when your metabolism slows down, when you start to go to sleep. Muscle tissue, nope, it's a scavenging, burning, ravaging, and it's, you know, crazy, looking for everywhere, anywhere, 24 hours a day you can, calories to be burned to maintain the muscle tissue mass and density. So always think about weight loss. Quit buying into these stupid fads. You know, you can use food like Nutrisystems. If you really look at those diets and the way they're all put together, they're high protein diets. And that's going to serve you well for losing weight. But how do you keep it off? You can't just keep eating a whole bunch of proteins, because then after you keep doing that for 10, 20 years, your joints are going to start falling apart. You're going to have all kinds of bone density loss. You're going to have all kinds of other problems. And all the problems in the human body that are related to your calcium levels. So protein consumes and depletes the body of a whole bunch of calcium, because you have to produce acid to produce the enzymes that activate the enzymes to digest all that protein. What does your body do, or how does your body neutralize all that hydrochloric acid it had to produce for those big, high quantity, high volume protein meals? The only thing the body has to use is calcium. And if it's not in the diet, which most likely it's not, especially in heavy meat protein, your body's going to leach it from your bones. And that's where you lose a lot of bone density. So that's kind of the importance of protease. And again, if you take protease enzymes, you're breaking down a lot of these food sources, making calories available for muscle tissue. So it's not going to be required, and you're not going to have a bunch of inflammation trying to support muscle tissue metabolism. And like I said, it increases your lifespan. You can reduce the amount of caloric intake, and it's also going to help you lose weight, because almost every single bit of calories you're consuming, you're burning up just trying to support muscle tissue metabolism or function. So then the next one is amylase. And amylase, there's 4 different types of amylases in here. There's 3 different types of lipases in here. And for now, I'll just leave it at that. But amylases, they were the ones that burn your carbohydrates, and not all carbohydrates are created equal. That's why we had to have 4 different varieties. And the same thing goes, we have we have 3 that are acid and 1 that is an alkaline. Now, why would we need a amylase? Because that breaks down your carbs and stuff. Well, there's a lot of carbs that get into the body's bloodstream, and again, through oxidation, start to accumulate. So again, we're not talking about just digesting, we're talking about cleansing the blood, cleansing the organs, maintaining this pristine, healthy blood flow environment. And then you get into the lipases. We have a couple different lipases in here, but they all focus on just digesting fat. And that's the other thing about enzymes. Enzymes are one molecule specific. You're not going to get one lipase enzyme to interact with carbs, sugars, starches, or fats. It only interacts with fats if it's a lipase enzyme. Proteases, they'll interact with a whole bunch of different proteins, but they'll never interact with a fat or a carbohydrate. So that's why you have to have all these different enzymes in a formula in order to be effective. So then you go down to the amylases. Like I said, we've got several different of theirs, but that's because of the complexity of your GI tract, more so than anything. You got plenty of digestion. Most amylase, your carbohydrates, that actually starts in the saliva. A lot of people don't think of saliva as a digestive enzyme solution. Yes, it is. That's where most amylases are actually released from, is your salivary glands in your mouth when you start to chew. They get mixed in with the food source up above, and then they start the digestive process as your food goes down your esophagus before it gets to the acid stomach. And so that's the amylases. And again, they're just carbohydrate digesting enzymes. The lipases, again, are fat digesting enzymes. Fat has a real problem with accumulating in the body, especially LDL cholesterol. And these lipases that we have in here, they're geared towards breaking down oxidized LDL cholesterol. You know, for some medical issues with my feet, I've been going to the doctor fairly frequently. I went 4 times in the last 2 years. I have been 4 times in the last 35 years. But one of the things that my doctor made a comment of the last two times I was in there out of 4, she goes, how do you keep your blood oxygen level at 100%? You're always at 100%. And that's impossible for me. I don't know if anybody does that at our age. It's because of the enzymes. So, and when you think about the lipids that accumulate in the body, it's just not or a lot of fat in the diet. It's actually your LDL cholesterol that your body is making. And your body, if it's not functioning properly, and by the way, LDL cholesterol has an antioxidant protective value to the cell membrane. That's why your body produces LDL cholesterol. It's also what your body converts with the use of sunlight into vitamin D3. Vitamin D3 is a carrier for calcium. Magnesium is an absorbing factor, but once it's absorbed, now what does it do? How does the body know how to recognize it or use it? That's what vitamin 3D does. It's the horse that's the vitamin D3 in the cart that's calcium. And that horse leads it right to the human cell and points it exactly where to go and how the body can utilize it. And without vitamin D3, calcium is worthless. You can never alkalize a body that's deficient in vitamin D3 because you can't do anything once it's absorbed. So, but the lipases really can become a problem, not only just the fats in your diet, but even some fats that your body produces in order to carry out certain hormonal and other various metabolic functions. And that's one of the things that we need to really recognize is that's very, very critically important. Let me see here. Let me just adjust this just a little bit. Sorry about that, guys. There we go. Driving me crazy. Now I'm looking straight at you. So, yeah, the lipases, that's why they're formulated. They're the 3rd highest ingredient on the label. And we've got more than enough. In fact, I was trying to think of the demonstration we did to show how much just one capsule of enzyme could digest in the way of fats, but I can't recall it right off the top of my head. But then you go down, so there's protease, amylase, cellulase. And cellulase enzymes are the enzymes that break down fibers. All of us have to be able to break down fiber completely. There's very little nutritional benefit in cellulose, which is a food-based fiber. 0 calories, 0 nutrient benefit, but you got to be able to completely break it down because that's where the nutrients are going to come into the body and where we're going to get our nutritional absorption and the nutrition that the body needs to function with. So if you're not absorbing and breaking down, if you're not breaking down your fiber, which all food source comes from fiber, basically, even muscle tissue comes from fibrous flesh. So you got to be able to break down the fibers, and that's why this is the number 3 ingredient. And there's different fibers in there that have the ability to break down animal flesh fibers as well as your plant-based fibers in your food, like your bananas and corn and those kind of things. And then the 4th ingredient is our ionic minerals. We're going to talk about those very little, but that's for a later date. Lactase enzyme. And lactase enzyme, how many people are lactose intolerant? Meaning you cannot have a bowl of ice cream or any kind of dairy product without having some swelling, bloating, gas, and inflammation reaction to it. I'm going to share a story with you. My wife, she's Filipino. She is a wonderful gal, best wife I could ever ask for. And she loved America when she got here. Boy, she just loved America. And one day I was sitting there thinking about it, and I asked her, I said, so what do you love about America? Little Caesars and Breyer's ice cream. She just loves her Breyer's ice cream. And I'll tell you what, I've seen that little gal sit down, take 2 tablespoons of Breyer ice cream, And within about 5 minutes, just be all doubled over, gases all get out, stomach starts to bloat. You could actually see it start to puff out. And she's like laying over on the couch, just ready to cry. And I'm like, well, I told you didn't take the enzymes, did you? No. I said, you want me to get you something? Yeah. So I'll go get her 3, 4 of them, plus a couple probiotics. And in the next half hour, she'll be at that Breyer's ice cream. And I swear to God, truth, I've seen her eat a half a gallon of Breyer's ice cream in one single serving. No gas, no bloating, no problem. And so that's another thing that this is formulated for. This has a very high amount of lactase enzyme so that people don't react to the nutritional and protein benefits that are in dairy products. Now, if you react that way, you probably shouldn't be consuming them on normal genetics. But here's one of the biggest things that we're able to help people with. You don't have to be so strict with your diet. You don't have to expel all those foods that you have allergies to, because all food allergies are nothing but a symptom of a specific enzyme digestive deficiency. You don't produce lactase enzyme. You don't produce high protease enzymes. You don't produce high fat enzymes. And yet, if you live on a high fat diet, you're going to have nothing but inflammation and accumulation of fat all over the internal body, like a fatty liver. I just had this conversation 2 days ago with somebody called up about a fatty liver. My older brother died at age 18 from a fatty liver. So that is in our genetics, but that follows heart disease as well. So, so for that reason, you want to make sure you've got enough lipase in there and stuff to digest all these fats. And then, like I said, we have the lactase, which is the enzyme that breaks down lactose sugars and solids from dairy products. And then the next one down, I guess I just better leave my glasses on. Can't see worth a hoot without them. At least not close up anyway. Malt diastase. Malt diastase used to be called invertase. No, malt diastase. No, invertase used to be called sucrase. Okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. So malt diastase, it runs kind of almost parallel to your amylase. It's a carbohydrate digesting type of enzyme, but it's a little bit more specific. So that's why we have it in there. Digests malts and malt sugars in your food source. And then you have the lactase enzymes. Then you have bromelain. And this is something that's really irritating to me because the FDA came out with a new law. It says I can't list 20,000 FCCs of bromelain anymore. I have to list 5 FPUs of bromelain. 20,000 to 5 sure looks a whole lot different on a label to any old ignorant consumer. It's going to go in the health food store and pick it up and say, wow, this has got 5, this has got 20,000. I think I'll buy that one. It's cheaper. And it's got more in it. No, it doesn't. Those kind of companies are just sitting there playing again off the ignorance and lack of understanding about how all this labeling laws and stuff occurs. But by the end of this year, all bromelain units will be listed as 50 units. And so don't be misled by that 20,000 versus 5, because there's still the same amount of enzymes in that formula. Just the FDA said I can't put it in that activity unit anymore. They're moving to this unit. So, and the frustrating thing to me is they always give everybody 2 to 3 years to change their labels. My labels are always changed within the same year that the regulation came out. So bromelain is a great anti-inflammatory. Most professional athletes now, the U.S. Olympic teams, all of them take bromelain as an anti-inflammatory. Bromelain is a protease enzyme. Now, what creates inflammation in the human body? How does all this work? Well, it's real simple. Bromelain is a protease that breaks down proteins. An inflammatory protein is released by your liver in relationship to elevated cortisol levels. Cortisol is your fat storing hormone. It's your stressor hormone. Anytime there's inflammation in the body, your body is going to have high cortisol levels. And for all those people that struggle to lose weight, guarantee you go into an endocrinologist and have your blood done. you're going to see you have abnormally high cortisol levels. It's impossible to lose weight if you have chronic inflammation. So again, this is one thing that and I'll try to explain it best I can and keep it as simple as I can. Even though I'll be honest with you, some of these conversations, I don't know how to get it across the simple way. My mind functions like a scientist in a very detailed manner. But when you sit there and you talk about reducing inflammation, understand where inflammation comes from. It's an elevation of a called fibrinogen spicule. So it's a fibrinogen kind of protein that's released every time cortisol elevates it. And cortisol is a necessary hormone. Like when you're out working out and you're running or jogging and you're marathon, you're a power lifter, whatever, cortisol will eventually start to elevate as oxygen levels in the bloodstream start to diminish. And so it stops you from tearing down your body and damaging it. And that's a necessary function of your cortisol. But on the flip side of that, it creates a much larger problem, especially for women, menopause, older people over the age of 50. Our cortisol levels are always constantly rising and staying elevated. And part of that is because of the lack of muscle tissue, lack of burning of calories, so you're putting on fat mass, not muscle tissue mass, and lack of oxygen. And that's one of the biggest things that's going to keep your cortisol levels elevated is lack of oxygen, whether it's lack of exercise, whether it's lack of lung capacity, whether it's a lack of iron in your red blood cells. I had a wonderful conversation with a lady tonight out of, I believe it was Grand Rapids, Michigan. Long conversation, an hour and a half or so. But anyway, so as we were talking and stuff, I tried to explain all of this kind of stuff because it is important to understand this as much as you can. So fibrinogen is the protein that's released that actually creates inflammation in relation to cortisol, but it's not the only protein. Let me just say that, but it is by far a major factor of the protein. So what happens is when you start to take this bromelain, it is a protease. That protein fibrinogen is a protein. So when you start to take this real high activity bromelain, it goes in and literally breaks it down. And one of the things that a steroid does, it blocks your body from producing cortisol. So you're able to go in and just rip the heck out of your body as a bodybuilder or an athlete, something like that, and get massively freaky huge, like I used to be. And Tom Mano and other people around me that I've known that are just like freaks in nature sometimes. It's like, how can you do that? But that's what cortisol can do. But that's how athletes get way above and beyond where we were just 25 years ago as their capability. Is that bromelain, it actually breaks down and reduces inflammation in the body, which increases oxygenation, which is energy, recovery, whole bunch of different things. And that's one of the reasons why we have such a high amount of bromelain in there. But yeah, we used to have 20,000 FCCs. We still have 20,000 FCCs. It's just labeled different. 5 BIPs, I believe. Well, we listed on here as bromelain on the label, but the activities is what I'm talking about. The activities have to be listed as something else. And oh, by the way, when you look down my label, you don't see any activities at all. You just see pluses. The reason I did that is because so many people, hundreds of network marketing companies just went in and bought my bottle just to see what the ingredients were, and then take it to some manufacturer and say, can you duplicate this? Oh yeah, we can. And then they just knock me off. I don't get any penny. I don't get any rewards for all my research and tens of millions of dollars spent over the last 30 years for research. I don't get one single bit of that. And so I stopped putting that on the label for that reason. It's not that I wanted to hide anything. We have it on our website. And Dover, if you can bring that up, that would be great at this point. I don't want to hide it from anybody, but I don't want to make it easy for other people to go out and scam other people simply because they have easy access to my label. So I put a halt to all of that several decades ago, actually. So bromelain is an anti-inflammatory. It'll help reduce inflammation. Then you get to the lipase. I think we talked a little bit about lipase earlier. And then invertase is another enzyme. And invertase used to be called sucrase. So it's a carbohydrate. I won't call it a sugar, but it's another form of sugar-based carbohydrate digestive enzyme. And that's really important to have, because if you're a diabetic, you want to make sure that everything is fully digested to where it can be assimilated and expelled, not just hang around and elevate blood glucose levels. So that actually helps with that. Invertase would help with diabetes and things of that nature. And the last but not least is alpha galactosidase. And so many people say, what is alpha galactosidase? You're going to see that more and more and more and more in almost any digestive enzyme formula today. And the reason is because alpha galactosidase is a proteolytic enzyme that actually splits gas molecule. When you have gas and bloating in your, hold on here. I got all these people calling me. I'm not going to take calls during this. So anyways, you have alpha galactosidase, which actually breaks the gas molecule. And that way you're able to avoid a lot of the gas and bloating, even though you're not getting great digestion of some of your carbohydrates or even your proteins or even your sugar-based foods. And that's what that's in there for. And there's enough in there where it gives really good gas relief. The only problem is it takes about 2 to 3 weeks to get rid of all that oxidized stuff that's actually your body's reacting to in the intestinal system through the mucosal plaque layers. It'll take about 2 to 3 weeks for the enzymes to actually start to dissolve and get rid of all of that stuff. But once it is, then you don't have that gassing and bloating and excess flatulence and all that kind of stuff. That's a tremendous help for that. And too many people are having gas and bloating, and the reason for that is because way too much of the protein, the meat flesh in their diet, just literally sits around inside the human body for days, literally days, 2, 3, 4 days. And you can just look and do a corn test. You know, I did this with Michael Banks. He's on our website as well. I did this to one of his big seminars that he does through Walmart chain. And I sat there and I said, well, it's real easy to see how well you're digesting. Eat a meal with muscle tissue flesh, eat it in the evening, and then go ahead and go to bed. And but in that meal, you want to make sure you have whole kernel corn. And start looking for that corn to be showing up in your stool. And for many days, and I'll never forget this one, and she was a fitness athlete. She was a competition fitness person. She was a fitness trainer, a little short gal. I saw the picture of her finally. And she was bragging. She goes, oh, I digest that stuff fully. I haven't seen it for a whole week. It had to be out by now. And I said, well, how many bowel movements have you had? She goes, 2. And I said, well, nobody can digest whole kernel corn. They just can't. And if you want a really good non-digestible corn, get it out of a can. Don't buy the frozen. Just get it out of the can, a little small Del Monte can of, I think they're 4 ounce or 6 ounce, something like that. And eat that with your meal. Well, sure enough, 12 days later, she saw her corn. Started crying right on the call and everything. But that's how bad some people's digestive process really is. Nobody could be like that. But she had extreme fatigue. She ran out of energy really fast. She had gas and bloating. She had headaches. All the typical symptoms that says your body's not digesting worth a doggone. So that's why we created this enzyme. Hopefully you got some benefit of me going through the different enzymes. And the strains I picked are because they're so easy to concentrate for us in our technology to have these really high activity units. Because enzymes are only as good as the activity that comes from them. Always remember that. An enzyme is only as good as the activity that comes from the enzyme. And so all quality standards should be listed by activity units. Now that brings up another bit of a different conversation as well, because you have FCCs, you have USPs, you have individual P units, lipase units, cellulase units, There's no standardized measuring of quality out in the enzyme industry. And again, I would never ever want to have the FDA come in and regulate us any more than we are, but I wish they would step in and regulate the enzyme industry and standardize all these activities so that everybody has an even playing field. So no, not all these labels are out there 20 and 50,000 bromelain units, and I got to say 5, and I'm better than most of them. So that's the frustrating part for me. But our formulas are always going to be put together based upon the nutritional and the metabolic needs of the human body. And so that's why I got so deep into understanding the human body, even back when I was in my mid 20s, late 20s. I mean, that's when I moved to Arizona, that I just, the guys all the way around me, from Mike Ashley, Mr. Natural Universe, 1984, is on the front cover of Muscle Magazine. He was one of my neighbors. And then y'all heard about St. John Smith and Karch Karai way back, now I'm going way back, a good 40 years, if not 50. But they were the first volleyball beach professional tour groups. And they dominated that entire thing for about AVP, the Association of Volleyball Professionals. Yeah, they dominated that whole thing for well over 10 years. And Karch Karai was my neighbor down in Scottsdale, Arizona. We had all these athletes, and we used to play volleyball, tennis. I used to go in and work out with Mike Ashley before I met Tom Manno. So I was always around these really high-end athletes for at least the last 35 years of my life. So that's kind of where I got my education, my interest, but it just had to be more. There had to be more. I'm one of the little kids that you just want to slap across the face half the time. Don't you ever shut up. Like, why? I always needed to know the why. And to this day, I'm still the guy that needs to know why. Nothing just happens on its own. Nothing just happens by circumstance or accident. There is a reason behind everything. So, and then the minerals. Let's talk about this, because again, when I started formulating way back in 1990, I discovered something. There was a huge fatal flaw in the entire nutritional industry, especially the people that had digestive enzymes. Enzymes don't work without minerals. And I urge all of you to do this. Find out for yourself, stick up for yourself. Don't let other people tell you a line of BS. Go get some distilled water. Rinse out a little glass with distilled water. Turn it over, let it dry on its own. Then go ahead and put about, maybe an inch and a half's worth of water in the bottom so it doesn't dehydrate out over the next couple of weeks. But get any seed you want and set it in the windowsill near heat. And at the same time, do that with even tap water. Just take another glass, same seed from the same package. The only difference is the water. One has minerals, one doesn't. Distilled water has no minerals at all. Stick them in the window and see which one's going to sprout, which one's going to develop a root, and which one's going to sit there and develop into a plant. I've seen the distilled water crack the seed. I've never seen a sprout. And I've done this, told people to do this for their little high school experience, for the grade school experiments. I've told people to do this for decades now. I've never heard of anybody being able to sprout a sprout in distilled water. That's why there's minerals in the soil, so the plants can grow, so the germination process can actually start and happen. If you're void of minerals, any farmer with their intelligence of gold will tell you you can't grow anything. When the soil becomes eroded of minerals, you haven't got anything to grow a plant with, even if you got the seeds. So those are the things that I want everybody to really kind of think about. And the minerals that we have, you kind of heard this last week's call. I had a guy out in Reno, Nevada come to me after the presentation was over. There was about 1,300 people there. He come up to me in the hallway afterwards and he says, I got to talk to you. I got something I have to give to you. And I thought the guy was nuts because he came to the door twice. And just really, really old. I mean, he looked as old as Moses, going to be honest. I thought he was close to his hundreds. Real skinny, tall guy. And he says, can we go down the hallway? And I said, no, I'm really busy. I got about 30 people in here. We're putting together a marketing program, blah, 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 blah. So anyways, he just says, well, he says, I don't know how to tell you this, so I'll just come right out and say it. God told me I'm supposed to give you these. And I said, God told you you're supposed to give those to me? Well, geez, how do you get a hold of God? I'd love to call him sometime. He doesn't talk to me too much. Sounds like he's on the phone with you all the time. And he says, don't mock God. That's the first thing he said. And I didn't realize it. He's a pastor. He's an ordained pastor. And I said, well, okay, I guess nothing. Again, I said, I remember saying, well, nothing happens by accident, so I'm supposed to have these for some reason. I took them back to Scottsdale, and I sat there, and those things literally sat there for the next 4 weeks. I didn't even bother looking at them, opening them, nothing. And then we had some people fly in from Salt Lake City, from Longmont, Colorado. We had about 8 other network marketing companies coming to evaluate my enzymes to see whether they want a private label or not. So we had about 30 different brands lined up on a table, and glass oatmeal behind each and every one of them. And so as I'm starting this demonstration, I remember Nick Mangiris and Andrew Mangiris very clearly. They were the first ones. And when I'm starting this, my other guy that I was working with at the time comes out and he said, that crazy loon just won't stop. He's called 5 times in the last hour. And I said, well, let me go get rid of this problem. So I left, went out there, and I said, okay, last time, did God tell you anything else? He said, no, but I got to thinking about it. He said, have you ever put those in your minerals? I said, nope, but if I got, I'll do it right now just to get rid of you and stop the calling. So I literally put down the phone, went out there, and I said, this crazy idiot thinks this is going to do something. So I sprinkled a little bit of enzymes in our label of enzymes, put it in there, and that oatmeal that used to take me a half hour to 40 minutes just to get it wouldn't digest. It would just kind of glisten on top and run off of a plate. It would just slide off in big old clumps. Oh, look, it's starting to digest. That thing went to complete water in less than 10 seconds. Full tan water in 10 seconds. Something that used to take me half hour to 45 minutes to do. And I could do it with 1 capsule, not 3. So I said, you know what, guys, I'm going to have to end this today. You can kind of talk to my guy here. And so I went out there and I said, now, what else did God tell you I was supposed to do with this, or I was supposed to have? I've never seen anything like this, and nothing like this exists in the enzyme world. So we went out and we actually bought up the property. It's in another country, but it's the only place found on the planet Earth so far. And no one else has access to this minerals. I stopped private labeling it to all the other companies. They are just out for the money. They had no interest in supplying a great quality product that's going to change people's lives. So I ended that whole relationship with the private labeling industry. Well, I see somebody's having problems getting in the call, but it's too late for them. I'll talk to them later. So anyway, that changed my life. I mean, just how I got involved with enzymes came from the Lord. Came from the Lord. There was no coincidence on any of that part. From coming in the lake, blowing the radiator hose, and then happened to be looking for a company where I could actually own a financial interest in the shareholder part of it. All came to be in less than 24 hours. So I learned from my life, your life shows up as what you're committed to. Your true inside of who you are as a human being. That's what shows up in your daily life. You can talk a story, walk a different story, you can do anything you want, but your true intent is what creates your life that you live through every day. And a large portion of that is dictated by your belief system. I call it a person's BS system. I can't believe how much BS so many people have as their belief system in their life. But anyways, that's for a whole nother. I don't even think it's an enriching gifts conversation. That's just a whole other conversation sometime. But anyway, so we have these minerals, and you don't need very many minerals at all. I mean, I think there's only 7.5 milligrams of minerals, or 5.7 milligrams. It's a really tiny, small amount. But these things have some kind of a unique charge that accelerates, catalyzes enzymatic activity like no other mineral on the planet. None. And we started tearing it apart and looking at it and stuff. There was no heavy metals. There was no toxic minerals in there. It was one of the cleanest sources of minerals we'd ever seen. And so God gave me enzymes, and now God gives me these minerals. So this whole thing for me has been a spiritual journey more so than anything else. But I know my life tremendously changed when I change. I'm going to start showing up for people, not for myself, not for others. I have to come last. In my mind today, I come last. I will get my reward somewhere down the line, I know, if I just do for others what their dreams and wishes are. So I try to participate and help people as much as they can. And for whatever reason, I guess the nutritional aspect and the belief system people that, well, I'd rather go alternative than the drug method. It always seems to be circulated around disease and illness. And I don't know how I'm going to expand that, but I want to show up for people that have emotional damage issues. You are the creator of your life. No blame, no pointing fingers. You are the one that makes the decisions. You're the one that makes the interpretations from events that happen or circumstances or experiences. You're the only one that has the mind that can make that mean whatever you're going to make it mean. And then when you sit there and start to learn all that, then you can go back and say, wow, all of this stuff comes from my childhood. And that's what I learned for myself. And that's when my life dramatically changed, April 23rd, 1994. So that's my presentation on enzymes. I'm sure you all have some questions. So feel free to ask any questions you have so we can round out and complete that digestive enzyme conversation tonight.
Absolutely, Ron. And please, if you have a question, and that was fantastic information, Ron, thank you. And I love it. You know, people over profit. That's been your mantra for years. You've always been about the people.
Yeah.
So
Well, like
if
I
anyone has
said,
a question,
yeah, it's
Hey,
not
I
easy.
have a question,
Go ahead.
Ron.
Yeah.
Okay. First of all, I got to say, I had my blood analysis done with Lachelle, and my oxygen levels were at 100%. I've been on the plant enzymes. So it was 100%, which was really awesome.
Yeah,
And
very awesome.
yeah, so my question is, on your protocol, you start with one enzyme, at every meal, and you work up to 4 or 5 weeks, and you're working up to 2 or 3 enzymes per meal.
Yeah,
Now,
let me just correct you, Susan. Did you ever get any of those how to use the Enriching Gifts
yes,
product flip chart?
that's what I'm
Okay, so
talking about on that flip
yeah, you
chart.
can just start with those, and that'll tell you week by week, month by month, up to 16 weeks of use. Each product
My
might be varied a
question,
little bit from what's on the label, but they're going to be exactly the way on that chart.
my question is, so if I'm up to the week, 5th week, and I'm supposed to be doing 3 enzymes with each meal, what if that meal is light and, like fish that doesn't take
Well,
a lot to
and
process? Do I still need to take it? 3
no,
enzymes?
no, and here's the thing. I always say 2 to 3 per meal based upon how much protein is in that meal. What type of protein is in that meal? Is it muscle tissue? Is it eggs? What's the protein source? Is it plants, yams, chickpeas? I mean, what's the protein source? The only time you need 3 or 4 per meal is when you're going to sit down and have an 8 to 12 ounce prime rib or T-bone steak or something like that. Otherwise, 2 on an average is way more than enough. And if you're just going to have a snack, just take 1.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions? Anybody? Wow, that was easy. I thought this was going to take me well over an hour and a half. I know we went a little bit over, but this isn't bad at all. This is the shortest enzyme conversation I've ever had. Does that make sense to all of you guys? I mean, you can all understand the flow of this real easily.
Ron,
Elizabeth,
think it was very
Hey,
helpful.
Ron.
I think it's very helpful. I'm doing the boot camp for women, and several of them are on this call tonight. And so, we have upped our protein because women over 50 do need a little bit of protein to build muscle. And so to break that down is very important to them. And I like the way you explained it.
You brought up the final point. If you're over 50, your body's already producing way less digestive enzymes. And then you throw in high protein into that, you're going to only clog up your red blood cells. You're going to clog up and lower the oxygenation. You're going to create an acidic body. You might lose some weight, but and you can't maintain muscle tissue with protein unless it's fully broken down into the amino acids. That's what actually the muscle tissue uses to build itself and maintain itself. So like I said, you go back to the fundamental basics of how the body ages. By the time you're 38 to 42, you produce less than 50% of the enzymes you did at 15. There is no way you can put a higher protein content in and build muscle tissue or even maintain it. There's no way that's going to happen at 50 years old. You're going to lose the weight because of all of the muscle tissue. It's constantly just burning. And it burns it trying to digest the protein. The problem is you're losing weight, but you're not maintaining the muscle tissue mass. You're just burning calories. So glad you brought that up. That's a really good question.
Hey, Ron, this is Ronnie. Got a question for you.
Hey, Ronnie.
Hey, so I want to ask, what's your thoughts on which way to go would be the best? So just for blood cleansing, cleaning up your blood. All right, I hear you say to take one at night before you go to bed to help clean your blood. But I've also heard you say something about, taking it, basically when you're not going to have anything to eat. So in the mornings when I get up, I have Sterile Max and I wait about an hour before I have my shake. What if I took an enzyme in the morning with my Sterile Max? Is that hour better than taking it at night, or what's your thoughts?
I'm going to be honest with you, Ronnie. These oximeters are so inexpensive. You can go out to Walmart in the pharmacy department and pick them up for $20, $30, just depending on how fancy you want to get with the brand. I've been able to do this repeatedly all over, especially when I was living in Hawaii for those 5 years. I used to be out on the back of Lanai, the canal went from the ocean through a lot of the high-end residential community over in Hawaii Kai. And I'd sit out there and I'd do this test time and time again. Didn't matter the time of day, didn't matter before a meal, after a meal. If you just took 2 to 3 enzyme capsules, 2 to 3, and you just waited 15, 20 minutes, prick that person's finger, first thing you're going to notice, the color change on the finger is dramatically different. It's as red and pink as that record button red that I have on my screen right now. No longer black and all that stuff. And then you take that oximeter, hook it up to the end of the finger. Guess what? You're 99 to 100% every single time. And you can hook up that oximeter before. I've had people as low as 84, 85. And I talked with a doctor. I guess that's really not that uncommon. It's not good at all, but it's not that uncommon given today's high flesh meat diet and such high food. So that's just kind of take that as your guide. I mean, whatever time is convenient for you. Are you going to be doing some activity and working hard and things like that, where you need a little bit more oxygen and energy? Pop a couple enzyme pills. I'll take care of it.
Okay, so
Hey,
it
Ron.
really wouldn't hurt me to take one at night and one in the morning as well, really.
No, it actually, I'm going to tell you something. I always tell people take 2 to 3 at night, away from and after your meal. Why? One, you're going to get the entire bloodstream completely filled with digestible nutrition. So that's cellular food, and that's when your body recovers. Most of it does the healing, repairing is at night when you sleep, because that's when your metabolism slows real way down, so the rest of the body can get things done. So that's the first thing. The second thing is your body will actually alkalize during your sleep, and that's another thing. Take a pH strip, that little litmus strip. Take 3 enzymes, take your litmus strip, put it in there, and get your thing, tear it off, save it, because it's not going to go any more acid. It might start to go alkaline just because of exposure to the air. But remember your color. Kind of put it up to that little thing and get your 5 or 6 pH, whatever it is. And then take 3 enzymes and then wait about a half hour, and then take that same litmus strip, pull it out, and it's always going to be blue or purple. Not going to be green or orange or yellow or brown or any of that kind of crap. And it doesn't stay that way for very long. That's why people need to stay on this for years and years till the rest of their life. Because the longer you stay on this, the more enzymes are going to build up in an active state that are circulating around your bloodstream. And you're going to oxygenate. Oxygen is the highest factor of alkalinity to the human body. And the second part of that is calcium, because calcium naturally neutralizes the presence of acid. And if there is no acid base, then you have to be in an alkaline base. That's just basic science 101. So you kind of be your guide depending on what you're doing. I remember I used to take a couple enzymes, me and Tom and Jeff and Randy and Rod and them guys. There's about 7 of us go in the gym sometimes. We always took 3 enzymes after our workout, but we also took 2 enzymes before the workout. Get all those red blood cells all freed up and get the max amount of oxygen we could to go through our workout. Then we took the enzymes to actually take and break down the inflammation that was created by the workout, which speeded up our overall recovery time. We didn't take 2-3 days to recover. We were all recovered, all of us, in 24 hours or less, which is what a steroid did. Only we didn't have any steroids. So
Okay,
Ron,
great.
Jacker back here. Ron, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm glad you were able to get in the call. I saw you texted me, but anyways.
Yeah. I just got in. I guess I was late. I thought it was 6, but I've learned a lot already, and I appreciate it. With that oxygen meter, that should be somewhere in the 90s or 100s. Is that correct?
Always should be above 95 at all times. When you start going below
Okay.
95, then your body is starting to starve of oxygen. Your cells don't function as well. You don't eliminate, metabolize waste as well. Your energy goes down. Your thought and your clarity of mind goes down. There's a whole bunch of things that are associated with lack of oxygen that aren't good.
Okay. All right. Good enough. I'll get you next week at 5.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what,
So-
we were over in Las Vegas, and I don't know if they told you or not, but I asked about you. And I heard you
Oh,
kind of backslid a little bit from where you used to be.
Yeah, I did, and then with COVID, they laid off 1,600 of us, even those that have been there forever. So
Yeah, I saw Brittany wasn't there anymore, and yeah.
I haven't worked in almost a year, but I think working helped me a lot. It helped me.
Oh, absolutely.
Doing
Exercise
everything. So
would
just
help.
laying around the house, quarantined up hasn't been the best for me, but I'm still here 5 years later, plugging along.
Yeah.
So thank you. And
Yeah, well, and like I said, I'm really sorry that I was missed you, because we definitely stopped in and wanted to see you and Kim. I thought you were both still around, but we ended up talking to Corey, is who we ended up talking to.
was that at the Alara there?
Yeah, we went up over Christmas and New Year's Eve week like we normally do.
Oh, that's great. They shipped us over to the other resort at the Boulevard around February or so, and then I don't know when, either March or April is when they put us on furlough and then let us go. I don't know, a couple months ago. But
yeah, just so we don't hold up the call anymore, let you and I cut off. But give me a call later on sometime this week. It'd be nice to catch up with you.
Yeah, for sure. All right.
Okay.
Thanks again for this. What I got really helped.
Oh, good.
All right.
And I think somebody else had a question, comment, somebody? Thought there was somebody else trying to come in there. No? All right, well, Dover, I think I'm done, and we went definitely over our time, about an hour and a half.
All right, Ron, that was a great call, and a lot of rich information. And you mentioned it earlier, and just kind of put some closure here in terms of the allergies. You were talking about Samantha, right, and the lactose intolerance. That's really how our relationship started for me. Like, in Cancun, Mexico. Like, I was lactose intolerant. I went to the nacho bar. I had some sour cream and cheese, and I was just hurled over. And I'll never forget going to your booth immediately after that, and seeing is believing, right? So you did a blood analysis with me.
That was an amazing seminar where we ended up giving away our product to everybody as samples because we didn't get a licensing before we shipped it all into Mexico.
Right.
Everybody and his brother was getting our probiotics and enzymes, getting rid of those what do they call them? The Mexico poops or whatever, something like that. Yeah. Everybody had
Those were
diarrhea because of the water and stuff. But it sure cleared them up. So our booth was just nothing but a running line of people sitting there to get enzymes and probiotics so they could go over the bar and party and eat up a storm, I guess. That was
Good times.
interesting. Yeah.
But no, thank you so much. I really appreciate you you sharing with all of us, and everyone. Thank you for attending. We look forward to
And
next week.
we're going to talk about Steromax. Really, really important, especially the environment of COVID-19. Real important.
All right. Well, everyone have a fantastic night, and we will see you next week. Let's call it
Okay.
a wrap. Take care.
Good night, everybody.